Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Daf Yomi Maseches Moed Katan Daf Chaf number 20. As you can see, I'm not in my regular place here. I'm actually in Shari Tzedek Hospital. My wife is online to be induced, so it could be there's 7 people apparently ahead of her. So I have some time now to give a shir. Hopefully she'll be okay. Just to say it, I think she'll be okay. All right, we're gonna start for the baby, of course. Also, Hashem. Hopefully, we'll share good news with you tomorrow. Gemara says. Gemara said 3 lines from the bottom. Yotam with Beis. They asked the question whether shloshim, if you have 7 days before the regel, within 7 days, the person dies, a relative dies. So therefore, the shiva is cut off, but the shloshim continues and it finishes after the regel. So the days of the regel count. So the first answer of the Gemara, Rava said, "Eino ola." He says the days do not count yet. For example, he had 7 days before, so you have to count 23 days after the regel to finish shloshim. So the Gemara says, "Esive." 3 lines from the bottom. Esive Akobres Meso Shnei Yomim Kodem Regel. If the person dies 2 days before the regel, Mona Chamish Yom Machar Regel. So like we said in the Mishnah, it has to die according. We'll see this is opinion Beis Shammai. And if it dies, only you need 3 days before the regel to cut off shiva. So if the only person only died 2 days before the regel, so you have to count 5 days after the regel. Malachta nas like the acherim v'agadu shivchosav osim b'sina b'sof peso v'ein rabbim misaskin bo. So his malacha was 5 days afterwards. He can't do malacha. In his house, they can do private. His maids and butlers can do privately. V'ein rabbim misaskin bo, but there's no nichum avelim. The people don't comfort him. We're going to see the reason. The Gemara says on Chafim and Aleph, the top, Shekvar. Let's turn the page here. Shekvar nisasku bo beregel, because even though nichum avelim, you're not really supposed to do nichum avelim during the regel, but it could happen during the regel. The normal thing is to do nichum avelim. The Gemara says, I think in Sukkah there is nichum avelim actually on the regel. So since the shiva for tanchumim, for consolation is passed, you don't do that after. You don't have shiva calls after that. Kol shel davar kol shehu mishum avel regel mafsiko v'kol shehu mishum iskei rabbim ein regel mafsiko. So anything which is because of the avel and hagos of avel, for example, doing malacha and things like taking a bath and things like that, the regel stops it and it continues after the regel is over. But if it's mishum iskei rabbim, people coming to comfort him, so then they already comforted during the regel, so you're not knowing nichum avelim after the regel. Let's say the person died 3 days before the regel, but so regel mona shiva. So regel mona shiva. Kavru shlosh yom b'sof regel. Now we're talking about a case where the person died 3 days before, during the middle of the regel, in the middle of Sukkot or Pesach, before it was over. 3 days before it was over. Mona shiva achar regel. So you have to on hagos of avelos, again, of bathing yourself and malacha by full 7 days after the regel is over. Arba yom rishonim rabbim misaskin bo. The first day, the 4 days after the regel, so then there's nichum avelim because you had 3 days. Shlosha yom achronim rabbim misaskin bo. But the last 3 days, the last of the 7 days after the regel, since you had 3 days of nichum avelim during the regel, so you only need another 4 after the regel. Something right, and the Brisa continues, the regel ololo. Seemingly mysterious statement. The regel counts for it. So we've been talking about shiva. We see that shiva is not noeg during the regel. We see that's clear from the Brisa that shiva is not noeg during the regel. For example, if you started 2 days before the regel, so the malacha you have to be noeg all the hanhagos of avelos 5 days after the regel. So you see the regel puts it on hold. It's not noe during the shiva is not noe during the thing. So what is the safe regel ololo? The regel does count. What does it count? We said before for shiva doesn't count. My lava seifa Must be we're talking about shloshim. So are we talking about a seifa? We're talking about where the person was buried during the regel, and therefore he had shloshim during the regel, and it counts. So the Gemara says law reisha. Really, it's talking about the Gemara's motive and mixes over here. The Gemara admits in the first case of the brisa, we see clearly that just like the regel is not counted for shiva, is also it's not counted for shiva, but regel ola we're saying would be counted for shloshim. Shloshim would be counted as the regel. So you have 2 days before, so then you have 7 days of the regel, and then you'll only have, that would be 9 days, only 21 days after the regel to be knowing shloshim. But the seifa, where the person died during the regel, then shloshim doesn't get started, and you have to have full 30 days after the regel. Where there's another question on Rava, regel ololo leminyan shloshim. Regel counts leminyan shloshim case. Cover with tchilas a regel mona shiva achar regel. Mulachta naslik de acher and avodah shechasav osim listim himself based on. Ein rabim misaskim moshkar nisaskim over regel. The regel ololo. This Bryce says he died on the first day of the regel, a person. So he died on the regel, even during the regel. So it says in Mufurish over here that that even though shiva doesn't apply during the regel, but it says shloshim yom mon olu leminyan shloshim. They do count. You only have 23 days after the regel for shloshim. It does count for. So even in a case where it started on the regel, we see that shloshim counts during the. You count the shloshim during Sukkot or during Pesach. The shiva is started after. And that's why malachto 7 days after, but there's no tanchumim because no nichum avelim is nichum avelim happened during the regel. So the Gemara says tiyufta. It is a disproof of Rava. So the halacha is kiasa Rava and Amar Rabbi Yochanan. I feel the cover regel. He says based on this price that even if you bury the person on the regel, shloshim is counted. Or relay Rabbi Lezer or Rabbi Pidas B'rei. Lezer told his son Rabbi Pidas, I feel the cover regel. Even if you buried him during the regel counts, and the regel counts, and shloshim is lessened by the regel. If you did kfiyas amita, which is hanagas avail, you have to return your bed 3 days before the regel. Divrei Rebbe Lezer, he holds like our Mishnah that 3 days before shiva is cut off by the regel. You know, the kfiyas amita or any other hanagas avail. We're introduced to a new sheet over here that's cholik on our Mishnah and says even if the person dies even 1 hour, seemingly even 1 minute before the regel starts, so then the shiva is cut off. This machlokas, the Rezer and the Chum is machlokas in Shammai is Hilosh. Shammai Omrim Shlosh Yom. Shammai is like our Mishnah 3 days. It's Hilom Mafilu Yom Echad, even 1 day. Amar Huna Rabbi Chia Barab, Amar Yochanan, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chia Barab, Rav Huna. Afilu Yom Echad, Afilu Sha'achas. Halacha is even 1 day, even 1 minute, and that's how we pass. Rava Amar Halacha. Katan and Didan, Amar Shlosha. Rava apparently said halacha is like our Mishnah. Ravina ikla Surah, but we see a Maisa now like this. Ravina went to Surah, the Pras. Surah, which is next to the Euphrates River. Amalei Rav Chiyul Ravina Hilchasa Mai. What's the halacha? Amalei Afilu Yom Echad Afilu Sha'achas. Even like we see this halacha and this paskin, even 1 hour, even 1 day, maybe even 1 minute before the regel, it cuts off shiva. Yasser Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha killed Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar. They sat. Following Rabbanim sat on the porch. Yitzchak ben Elazar. Nafak Milsa B'Minayah. They were talking about Avelus, and they asked me, "Minayin Avelus Shiva? How do you know Avelus is for 7 days?" It says, "I turned your holidays into an Avel. Ma Chag Shiva Af Avelus Shiva." Just like Chag Sukkos, Chag Pesach are technically 7 days. So to Avelus is also 7 days. Now this seemingly is a drasha d'Rabbanan because it comes from the Nevi'im. You can't learn the rice from the Nevi'im. There's a big machlokas whether there is one shita, the Rif shita in Brachos happens to be Avelus Shiva is actually the rice for 7 days, but most poskim hold that the first day might be, that's a machlokas Rishonim, but after the first day it's not going to be. We'll see how this is relevant. This is a little trailer for Ian with Ben Sion, Yeshiva's YouTube. We'll get to that in the Ian part of the Shir afterwards. But we'll see how this relates to that. The Gemara says, maybe the Chad Yom, it says Chagechem. So one of the 3 regalim is Shavuos, which is a 1 day. So maybe maybe Avila should only be 1 day. So Gemara says, "Who violated the Reish Lakish?" That's needed for Reish Lakish. Now Reish Lakish Mishum Yehuda Nesiya Minayin Lashmua Rechoka Sheinu Hegas El Yom Echad Dechsiya Fach Gegechem La'Avel V'Ashkan Atzeres Dikricha Yom Chag. He says that's needed for something else because technically there's 3 regalims. The majority of the regalim has 7 days. So therefore, we learn a normal Avelis is 7 days. So what about Atzeres? Atzeres is a regal of 1 day. If that's learned, Reish Lakish says to learn from there that there is a type of Avelis that only applies for 1 day, and that is called a Shmua Rechoka. Shmua Rechoka, we're going to see, is when you hear you weren't informed that one of your Zayin Krovim died until 30 days after the person died. So then you're only knowing Avelis for 1 day. That will be the center of the Yinut Ben Sion, Yeshivas Ben Sion, we will call it that. Yeshivas Ben Sion, that's what we're going to talk about, Shmua Rechoka, the idea of 1 day. That's really the topic. So the Gemara says, "Tana Rabbanan Shmua Krova no heges shiva v'shloshim Shmua Rechoka no heges yom echad." This is how we paskin. If it's Shmua Krova, I mean, you heard within 30 days. We'll see within 30 days. So then you have to sit shiva and a shloshim. If it's Rechoka, if you heard about it after 30 days, you only do 1 day. Ezi Krova, Ezi Rechoka. What is the definition? Krova b'soch shloshim. Krova, it means it happens within 30 days. Rechoka la'achar shloshim. Krova means you heard about it before 30 days. Rechoka means after 30 days. The Chum have a shita against Rabbi Akiva that even in Shmua Rechoka, you have a shiva and a shloshim when you hear about it. Amar Rab Rachanam Yochanan Kol Makom Shemotzi Yachin Mekil Rab Machmir. Anytime in halacha we find the Yachid is Mekil and the multitude of the Rabbanim are Machmir, halacha Garam, we follow the Rabbanim that are Machmir. Chutz Mizu, Shavish Rabbi Akiva Mekil, even though he's a Yachid, he's Mekil Chacham Machmir, and all the Chacham and most of the Chacham are Machmir. Halacha Rabbi Akiva, we follow Rabbi Akiva. So because the Amar Shmuel Halacha Kedivra Mekil Be'eva, Avela is only the Rabbanim, it's very Mekil or Mekil in it. So therefore, even it's a Yachid against Rab, and the Yachid is Mekil, we go to Rabbi Akiva, the Shmua Rechoka is only 1 day. The Amar Shmuel Halacha Rabbi Mekil Be'eva. Rachanina asked Shmuel Da'avua Be'echazai. Rachanina, he heard about his father dying from Be'echazai, which is a faraway place. It was after 30 days. After he passed away. Asked him, Rav Chisda came in front of Rav Chisda. He said, like we hold, that it only applies for 1 day. Rav Nasan Barami asked Shmuel the Imei. He heard that his mother passed away in Be'echazai. Be'echazai was a locality in Bavel. Asked him, Rava Amar Lei Harei Amru Shmur Rechoka Eno Hegaz Al Yom Echad Balvat. It's only 1 day. They asked the question from the Brayse. When do we say Shmur Rechoka is only 1 day? By the five of the 7 Matim is Avi Imo. Again, the Zayin Krovim are your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter, and your wife. Those are the 7. We'll see in detail more which ones are Daraisa, which ones are Rabbanan on Amad Beis. So by Avi Imo, which is the most Chamar Aveh, which you have to be knowing even for some aspects, even for 12 months. About Avi Imo, Shiva V'Shloshim. And here it was talking about where he heard about that his mother died and his father died. So it should be knowing, even the Shmur Rechoka should be knowing a Shiva and a Shlosha. Amalei Yechidahi. Lo Svira Lan Kavase. That Brisa is the opinion of a singular Tana. The Sanya, what is that opinion? Ma'isa Av V'Shor Yitzada Beginzek. The father of Yitzada died in Ginzek. V'Hodiu La'achar Shlosh Shanim. And they let him know after 3 years. He didn't know about it for 3 years. Above V'Shal Es Elisha Ben Avuya. They asked who else? Elisha Ben Avuya. People are not. We'll get to Maseches Chagiga. He is someone who is not looked upon favorably, who left the Darchei Torah seemingly, and even though he's mentioned in Pirkei Avos, there is a mention in Pirkei Avos about him. It was Kenim Sheimo V'Amru. He's quoted over here. Nog Shiva V'Shloshim. He said, practice even after 3 years, conduct the Shiva and the Shloshim, which is Benosha B'Achia B'Gola. And when the son of Yacha and the Gola died, Yashav will have Shiva V'Shlosha. And apparently the Brayso continues that maybe even Elisha ben Avuya Paskin, even by the son, a Shmur Rechoka of Shiva and Shlosha. Anyway, we see from the Brayso, this is the opinion of Elisha ben Avuya, holds that even a father, he seems to behold even all the Zayin Krovim. At least you see, at least for a father and a mother, there is an opinion, Zayin Shlosha. Could be that Shemeis Benosh Rabbi Yachi Begola, that was just his own hanhaga, but the proof is from is Elisha ben Avuya by the father, Aviv Shari Tzadok. There where you learn that Elisha ben Avuya is the Tana who holds that you're knowing for a parent, Shiva and Shloshim, even for Shmur Rechoka. And is this true? That Rabbi Achia sat Shiva and Shloshim for his son, V'harav Bar Achva of the Rabbi Chia, the Hava Bar Achse the Rabbi Chia. Rav, who happened to be the nephew of Rabbi Chia, both from his brother and from his sister, because Rabbi Chia had a half brother and a half sister. His parents, before having him, the father, I guess, brought a son in from a previous marriage, and the mother brought in a sister from a previous marriage, and then they had Rabbi Chia together. So Rav, and then at the end of those, the stepbrother and the stepsister ended up marrying, and they had Rav. So Rabbi Chia was his uncle from both sides. Rabbi Chia, Kisalik Lahasam, Amarlei. Rabbi Chia said to Rav when he went to Bavel. Rabbi Chia went to Bavel. Amarlei Abba Kai. I guess Rabbi Chia had come from Bavel. He asked, "Is my father?" Who spoke to who over here? Let me see this 1 second, just get clarity. So when Rav went up to Eretz Yisrael, to go up to Eretz Yisrael, Rav went from Babel to Eretz Yisrael. So Rabbi Chia asked him, Amarle Abba Kayim. He said, "Is your father Ivo?" Ivo was the father of Rav. Ivo was the half brother of Rabbi Chia. So Amarle Ema Kayam. Now these Ivo and Ima, the half brother and half sister of Rabbi Chia, lived in Bavel. So Amarle Ima Kayam. When Rabbi Chia asked Rav that, he said, "Is my father? Is your father alive?" He said, he answered him back, "Is my mother alive?" Like, basically implying he didn't want to say directly. You're not supposed to say a bad thing directly. He said it in a nice way, like the Gemara himself says in the beginning. But he said, "Ema Kayemes," basically telling him, "Yes, he died, but I'm going to tell my mother." Amarle Ema Kayemes. So then Rabbi Chia asked him, "Is your mother alive?" Who was his sister? Rabbi Chia's sister. Amarle Abba Kayem. He said back to him, "Is my father alive?" So when he asked me my father, so the fact he basically told him that both of them had passed away. Amarle L'Shamei, when Rabbi Chia heard that both his brother and sister had died, this was at least 30 days after their passing. Chalasli Minali told to his attendants, "Gabbai, take off my shoe, aholich acharai keli lebeis hamerchatz. Take off your shoes as one of the hagas of avelis. Can't wear shoes. And take my kelim to the beis hamerchatz. Take my clothes to the beis hamerchatz. Shma mina tlas." We learned three things from his actions. Shma mina avel asr minas asada. We learned he was noeg shmor rechoka, so therefore he had to be noeg in some way. So he took off his shoes. Shma mina shmor rechoka eno hegas aliyom echad. We see it only applies one day because he said, I'm going to the bathhouse. You're not allowed to bathe if you're an Avel. But mixes Yom Kikulo, we see that he didn't have to wait till the end of the day. He said, right now, let's go to the bathhouse and to the spa and get a bath. So therefore, you see that it only applies for part of a day. Little trailer over here, mixes Yom Kikulo, right? If it's really that we learn out of Shiva, Shmur Rechoka is learned out of the same pasuk as Shiva. And we said yesterday that Shiva, mixes Yom Kikulo, is really machlokes by Shiva between the Rabban and Abashal. Why is it so posh to Rabbi Chia not to follow? Why didn't the Gemara mention Rabban and Abashal over here? So the Gemara says. So the Gemara so the Bryce was talking about Rabbi Achia. Rabbi Achia was noeg Shiva Shloshim for one of his ayin krolim for his son, and Rabbi Chia apparently was only noeg 1 day. So the Gemara says Rabbi Chia l'chud, Rabbi Achia l'chud. They were two different people. The Gemara assumed they were the same person. Rabbi Achia and Rabbi Chia, no, they're two different people. Rabbi Chia held only 1 day for Shmur Rechoka. Amar Rabbi Yossi Barav and Shama Shmua Krova Beregel. Let's say he heard a Shmua Krova. He had it on the 30th day Beregel, or the 28th day in the Regel. Lemotzi HaRegel Nasis Rechoka. Now you can't be Noeg Shloshim. You could be Noeg. You are Noeg. Like we said before that it counts during Shloshim, counts during the Regel, but really the Avelis doesn't apply during. You're not supposed to be Avelis during the Regel. So then, by the time Motzei the Regel came, it was already the 31st day. Like we said before, that Shloshim counts during the Regel, and therefore it's considered a Shmor Rechoka, not a Shmor Krova, and therefore you only know it one day, even though technically you heard about it before 30 days. Tani Rav Adi the Min Kisri committed Rabbi Yochanan Hashem Shmor Krov Shabbos. Even if you heard it on Shabbos, Shabbos is the 30th day. Most of Shabbos that's Rechoka. Most of Shabbos is already the 31st day. Even Shabbos is considered that you didn't hear it that day, and therefore it's considered Shmor Rechoka. You only know it one day of Avelis. Korea or Eno Korea? Do you tear your clothing? One of the Hanagas Avelis to tear your clothing. So you only know it for Shmur Chukka only one day. So do you do Kriya or not? Ramani Amar Eno Korea. You don't have to rip your clothing when you hear about the person dying. Rabbi Chanina Amar Korea. Rabbi Chanina says you do. Ramani says Rabbi Chanina Bishlam do Damina Eno Korea. I say you don't rip your clothing. Hanadil Ika Avelas Shiva, because normally we assume ripping your clothing only comes with a veilus of 7 days. Al Did Chadamar Korea Kriya below Shiva. We find such a thing that you have rendering your clothing, ripping your clothing without a shiva. So the says, "Well, it's not true." Atani easy abu the rizera amrila achba the rizera kamei the rizera mishayin lo chalak likroa. Someone doesn't have a shirt to rip when he finds out that someone died. And his damin lo b'soch shiva, and during the shiva he gets something to rip. Korea could be also mishayin lo chalak achad likroa. I mean, he doesn't want to rip. He has wearing something expensive. He doesn't want to rip it, and he's able to find the cheaper clothing. Don't quote me on this. During the regal, Korea la'achar shiva. So then he rips after shiva. B'toch shiva Korea la'achar shiva eno Korea. If he finds the new beged after shiva, he doesn't rip the kriya. Ani Reb Zera Basrei Medra Amurim. Reb Zera, when he heard this, said, "When is this talking about? Chamisha Meisei Mitzvah. Only the other 5 Meisei Mitzvah. Only five of the 7 krov. Al imo." Korea Bahole, by your father and your mother, even if you find the new beged after Shiva, it's not Shiva anymore, you do Korea. So you see Kriya applies even when there's no Shiva. So the Gemara says, that Bryce was talking about, it's not a chiyuv to do Kriya Misada Avelis, it's midin kibbut avayim, that you're chayiv to do Kriya, but not midin Avelis. Maybe it's not a chiyuv, it's just you wanted to show kibbut avayim. So you can't bring a proof from there. Where we know the Helchas Havelos from. Whoever it mentions in the Parshas Emor, who the Kohanim are metame for, even though a Kohen is not allowed to be metame himself to a mace, for the Zayin Krovim he is allowed to be metame himself. So all of those people listed in that Parsha, an Avel is Misabel Aleim for 7 days. Elohain, what are they? Ishto, his wife, Avivi, his father's mother, Achivach, also his brother, his sister, Beno Bito, his son, his daughter. Hosifu Aleya. Now we said Achiv Vachoso. Achiv is talking about only a paternal brother. I think we're learned somewhere. And Achoso is talking about also a paternal sister, meaning it has to be the same father, and then she's not married yet. She's a b'sula, she's not married yet. Hosifu alei, and that's midaraisa. Hosifu alei and achav achosa absula mi'imo, and they added on midarabanan that even a mother, a brother or a sister from a virgin sister from your mother's side, maternal side. The achosa nesua ben ma'aviv ben mi'imo. It's midaraisa. If once she's married, even if she's a paternal sister, a kohen is not matame for her, but midarabanan there is a veilus for her, even if she's married. Just like you misabel midrabanan for these people, you also misabel midrabanan on the Zayin Krovim all have one of their Zayin Krovim that pass away, which is not one of your Zayin Krovim. So then you're misabel with one of your Zayin Krovim over their loss also. It's so to mishtatev in their tsar. That's what the Bryce says. That's Rebbe Kiva's opinion. The only shneim that you're misabel on, according to according to Shimon Elazar, is your grandson or your grandfather. Chamim seemingly say this first thing is like the Tanakama. All the shneim, anyone who you're misabel with, you're misabel. Anyone the Zayin Krovim, you're misabel on them, so you're misabel with him when he loses one of his Zayin Krovim. Chum hainu Tanakama. So the Gemara immediately asks, Chum seems to be the same opinion as Tanakama. Ikabenayo imo babayis. The difference is that according to Tanakama, he says you only are no a avelos with one of your Zayin Krovim. You're only mishtatev with one of your Zayin Krovim in his sorrow when you're with him in the house. You shouldn't be mezalzel in his avelos. But once you're out of the house, you don't have to be no the hilchas avelos. And the Chum say that it doesn't matter, even if you're not at the house, you're supposed to mizabel on him. Kiha, what's the example? It's the Amalei Rabbi Chia Brei, Amalei Rav, Lechia Brei, Rav said to Chia, his son, V'chein Amalei Rav Huna L'Rabba Brei, Rav Huna said to Rabba, his son, Ba'apa Noga, Ve'lusa B'lo Apa Lo Tinoga Ve'lusa, when your wife loses a karol, when she loses a car, she's in Avelos. So in front of her, you should be knowing Avelos. When you're not in front of her, you don't have to be knowing Avelos. Marukva Shachiv Le Bar Chamua. Marukva lost his brother-in-law, the son of his father, lost his brother-in-law. Several Mesav Aleh Shiva V'Shloshim. He wanted to be machmer the Chum and Tanakama to sit Shiva V'Shloshim. Al Rav Huna L'Gabei. Rav Huna went to him. Ashkechei. He found him sitting Shiva and Shloshim. Amalei to Naisa Bois L'Mecha. You want to just eat the meal of a mourner. The meal of a mourner is provided by other people. You want to just benefit financially from this. And that's supposed to be noag avelos. Lo amru lechod ishto el chamim v'chamoso. The only times you join with your wife in her avelos is when she loses her parents, not when she loses a brother or sister. So a brother-in-law, you wouldn't be misaba with her. The Sanya, how do we know this? It says in a brayso, mishemes chamo v'chamoso. If his father-in-law and mother-in-law died, in a rasha lakuv v'sishto liyosko chelas yopokes. Normally, a husband's allowed to force his wife to dress up nicely, to put on eye blush and to put on rouge, I think it's called, to make her cheeks more red. Elakofa mitaso v'noeg ima avelos. He puts his bed down, he overturns his bed, and he's actually in avelos, all the hanagas of avelos. So when she's in avelos, he can't force her to dress nicely because he has to make sure she's in avelos, and he has to know avelos with her. Also, if a woman loses her father-in-law, she's not allowed to if she wants to wear makeup. She has to be noeg avelos with her husband. But another brayso says, even though he can't, when the mother-in-law and father-in-law die, he can't force her to wear makeup. He's allowed to ask her to pour him wine and matzah to make the bed, and also to help bathe him. So you see, he's taking a bath, and one of the isurim of avelos take a bath. So you see that the husband, when his father-in-law dies, he's allowed, or mother-in-law dies, he's allowed to wash himself. Kashna adodi. So it's a question of these two braysos on each other. We must see that the first brayso is talking about when his father-in-law and mother-in-law die. The second brayso is talking about when it's his brother-in-law, not the father-in-law, and therefore he's not noeg avelos. Tanya na mihachi, we learn the brayso like this. L'amru lechvod ishto ela chamim v'chamosa belvad. Chvod ishto only applies for her father and her mother. Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to get very next is coming up. Ian with Ben Sion, Yeshivas Ben Sion, and we'll get to this topic of Shmur Rechoka, Ein Heges El Yom Echad. What is the get there? We'll get there soon.